Yes, welcome to the Vanguard Show on podcast, episode number 20. Today is June 6, 2021, at least according to the Greco-Roman calendar. But I have a very special guest in the building today, a longtime coalition comrade that we dealt with back in the 90s with the Black Panther Collective, Brother Malek Akan, former member of the Black Panther Collective in New York, coalition comrades, as I said. He's a revolutionary, a poet, and a community healer via acupuncture. And brother, how are you doing today, brother?
I'm doing well, brother. I'm doing well, brother. How are you?
Good, good. I'm so glad you sent out a tweet because, like I said, I just happened to notice the tweet. I think it was the Black, was it? No, I'm sorry. The Malcolm X grassroots movement you had tweeted something, and you said Black Panther Collective. I was like, wait a minute, that's our comrades back in the day, man.
Right. Absolutely.
Yes.
And I pronounce it Malek.
Malek. Okay. Yeah. Malek. I got you, brother. Brother Malek Akan. Yes. Well, tell us
no,
about.
absolutely.
Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was going to say,
no,
tell us.
ask me something.
Okay, sure. Go ahead and tell us about yourself, and also tell us about what was the Black Panther Collective.
Well, I'm from Harlem, New York City, to begin with. Largely grew up in Central Harlem, and I came across some former members of the Harlem chapter of the Black Panther Party. Well, let me jump back. The New York Black Panther Collective, and I want to get this right. I want to say there are two iterations of the New York Black Panther Collective. Some would say there are three, because there was definitely some later history after many of the members, including myself, had left. But there was an earlier iteration, or in the, I want to say, and I want to get the years correct, around 90, I want to say 92. This was former members of the New York chapter of the Black Panther Party, some former members of the BLA, the Black Liberation Army, who I got together and decided to start a news service or newspaper. I believe that the first iteration was the Intercommunal News as well. They decided also to bring some youth activists that they knew of into this group. And then obviously being revolutionaries and having still having a connection to the community, decided that they wanted to start off small, doing some community programs. And obviously a lot of the younger folks, the activists, were definitely with that. I came in just a little bit later, maybe 2 years later than that. There was another orientation, and I guess this was more of an official kickoff of the Black Panther Collective. I think the work that was done before that, it was less formal. This was sort of a formal, this is a formal invitation. And it was very specific. I mean, you couldn't just walk in. There was definitely a background check period.
Right.
Because obviously the party, these are former members of the party, and they had learned their lessons.
Yes.
And so you had to write an essay. And obviously provide your information. And I don't think I'm giving too much away by saying that some of the former members of the party are involved in private investigations.
Right.
I don't know if in New York if they still are, but they were at that time, and so they used their professional life to do investigations of the newer cadre that were coming in.
Oh, okay. All right. Well,
sorry, go ahead, bro.
No, go ahead.
No, please. No, I was just going to kind of
Mhm.
just cap off that, there was an orientation, and as you might even imagine it, and, sitting in I mean, it was a community center, but it was sort of a classroom type structure. And it was basically, I guess I was like 18 going on 19 at the time. And
Okay.
it was an orientation, but it was our first political education class as well.
Oh, okay. All right. All right. Yeah, I think the correlation between the Black Panther Collective and the Panther Vanguard in Los Angeles were very similar, primarily because they had some old cadre members along with new cadre in
Right.
terms of carrying forward the Panther movement. How do you view that in terms of similarities between our group and you guys' group? And how did you find out about us as well?
Well, I, I, what I remember at that time, and again, as a young cadre member, you know, and we were also, we had campaigns going on. I think we had a clothing drive campaign that was going on at the time, and I believe, yeah, and we also had obviously the video patrols, the brutality prevention project, which is what it became.
Right.
We were, kind of, dedicated to whatever specific work, we might have been doing. What I recall at that time is, and obviously the work on the newspaper that we were doing at that time, and obviously Panthers like Thomas Blood McCreary,
Mm-hmm.
and some of the OGs, original Panthers, still obviously had connections to their comrades on the West Coast. And so I wasn't privy to all of the discussions leading up to that time to build the coalition and start publishing the paper together
Right.
for that period.
Right.
But once those things came together, was definitely privy to that. And because I can't say exactly how we found out about your formation. I just knew at one point that we were definitely discussing your formation and looking through your materials and kind of excited because your political education obviously it mirrored our own, because
Right.
we at that time were very used to encountering other organizations who wanted to coalition build, but to be quite honest, a lot of organizations, even to this day, are not very serious about their political education.
Right.
And having a cadre, or that can run down specific political lines.
Right. Right.
And so I know that at that time we were excited because we were reading your stuff, and we were just like, okay, this is
Right.
these are some folks that we can be able to build with, and it doesn't matter that they're so far away. We're going to make this happen.
Right. Right.
Because there was obviously discussion about at the time there were other Panther formations and Khalid's formation,
Right. Right.
Khalid Muhammad's formation, and it was it was disappointing that we couldn't just meet up with any formation, because obviously the belief in political education and ideological understanding is rare, unfortunately,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
That's so true. And one of the things that I always give the Black Panther Collective credit on is that you guys were the first organization to go out in the streets and film these interactions with the police and the community, because you get individuals like the guy who taped Rodney King and even up until last decade or two, these video phones. But
Right.
during our day, they had these. I mean, you guys' day, they had these. You guys had these camcorders and cameras that you had to almost put on your shoulder like a movie,
Right.
like a
Yeah,
movie
absolutely.
camera. And you
Absolutely.
guys were the first one. That's why I always credit you guys. And talk about that program along with some others you guys had in detail.
Sure. The police patrols, and obviously we were in New York, so we were patrolling the NYPD. This is during the Giuliani administration. We partnered with, I don't know, some folks may remember old time attorney William Kunstler,
Yes.
who
Yeah.
had been an attorney for some Panthers during during the late 60s, very early 70s, but also I think might have even had a connection to Malcolm as well.
Right.
But he had passed by that time, of course, but he had there was a foundation in his name that was sort of continuing his work, the Kunstler Foundation. And we connected with the Kunstler Foundation because, of course, real talk, we needed funds to get this project off the ground, to have equipment and a space for training, and to just discuss the logistics of what it is to do a patrol where you're, it's not a game when you are patrolling a standing army like the NYPD.
Right.
We spent a year, if not more, just training, training and discussing what we were going to do.
Okay. And this was kind of in a way, it was a holdover from the Panthers in the late '60s, with particularly in Oakland, when they would patrol the police in the community and make sure that any arrest was lawful, if you will.
Absolutely.
And the Black Panther Collectives, with the new technology, well, we call it new then, but it's off the chain now. But you guys were quite revolutionary in terms of that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we and I when we discussed this on Twitter, I really hope that that at some point, former comrades, we will revisit that history of the Brutality Prevention Project. And as I said before to you online, there obviously the footage still exists.
Right.
There was even some documentary footage that is out there as well, which it was a German news crew, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not sure what really came of that. But at the time, it was to do the patrols, and with those kind of cameras at the time, wasn't always easy.
Right.
It wasn't always easy, but our biggest thing was, and very similar to how the party did the patrols. Obviously, we didn't have guns. Was our thing was to maintain discipline,
right,
but also to capture the imagination of the community. So we're going into a situation where obviously the cops have shown up and they're doing their usual thing of intimidation and controlling the environment. And we come in, and also we tell the people that this is your community.
Right.
And obviously don't be stupid, maintain a reasonable distance, but also, and we also provided on the spot legal aid as well.
All right. Wow. Wow. And tell me the reception of the community in New York to the Black Panther Collective.
Initially, I think people were confused because obviously you didn't see that then.
Right.
Obviously, like you said, the cell phone technology wasn't around, and people weren't really running around with video cameras challenging the police department in that way. And it was, I would say it's almost as revolutionary as rolling up with guns at that time, it seemed, that time, but we definitely got a lot of pushback from elements within the NYPD. We ran across, we were working largely in Harlem and Washington Heights.
Okay.
Which obviously, especially Washington Heights at that time, a lot of drug traffic. So the NYPD pretty much allowed their officers to run wild unchecked, which is obviously not much different from today.
Okay.
And so encountering these officers who basically were allowed, because you were dealing with the Latino and African communities, they get to run wild and do whatever they want. They're as a matter of fact, they often referred to as wild cowboys, and there were specific police officers that the community was aware of and had names for them like that. As I'm sure on the West Coast it was the same thing.
Oh yeah, LAPD was something else back in the day. That's for sure. Yeah, and picking up on that point in terms of relationship with the community, what about the relationship with some of the first generation cadre in New York that didn't join the Black Panther Collective, And how was that relationship or the reaction, if you will, to the BPC?
Well, you know what? It's interesting. And I think I know what you mean by this. You can correct me if I get it wrong.
Okay.
Now, there were comrades who were more so a part of the earlier iteration, but also the second iteration as well, but did not join and work directly with the patrols. And it's interesting, you know, because there was amongst the Panther family, and you know this,
right,
that the original Panthers and those who lived through those times are very, because of what happened to the party, are very careful.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, there is a lot of work that goes. Sometimes we got frustrated. The younger of us got frustrated with how much time sometimes things would take, because, you know, the OGs were very careful.
Right.
You know, they were very scientific in every move. They made sure that every move we made was scientific.
Right.
That we were never reactionary.
Okay. Right.
That there was that there was a reason for everything that we did. But even with that, there was some comrades who didn't feel that we should be doing this patrol because it was too risky.
Right.
That, you know, the young folks, youngers of us at the time, might get killed.
Right.
There was a concern for that.
Oh, yeah.
That's real.
Yeah.
So it wasn't always agreed upon, but, you know, but obviously we believed, and this is another thing about the patrols, in capturing the imagination of the masses of the community,
okay,
that to let the community know that you are not powerless.
Right.
You know? And that is obviously one of the fundamentals of the legacy of the Black Panther Party, is that, you know, that you know, all power to the people. The people do have power.
That's right.
You know.
That's right. And one of the things that I have to bring up personally is that in Los Angeles, we had such a support system with people like Ronald and Roland Freeman, you know, Brother Wayne Farr, Muhammad Mubarak. They were very supportive of what we were doing in the community, because they saw that we were not just a platform, but we had programs for the community. And thing is, we had a strong credibility because of Kwaku Duran, who reorganized the Southern California chapter. He had Charles Boko Freeman, who has a variety of functions he did within the Black Panther Party, as well as Sharif Abdullah. So do you think that kind of credibility really benefited the reception of the Black Panther Collective in New York?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. I think, you know, and some of those names, obviously, I'm familiar with. Not everybody, but I definitely remember Kwaku.
Yes.
But you know, that is part of the legacy of the party within our movement.
Right.
That, you know, that the party, you know, not to, you know, to coin a phrase, were the vanguard, were the revolutionary vanguard. That's right. And so the Panthers who stayed in the movement, and obviously many are still around, are still the intellectual, my opinion, are still the intellectual vanguard of the movement. Right. And are very serious about the dialectical method, about moving forward and planning every step out. And yeah, I think that was a huge part of obviously also our coalition building. Right. As well as those connections between comrades, and that obviously that affinity for scientific method.
Okay. And I know one of the collaborations with this newspaper, I know I sent you a recent yes. Copy, but this was such a historic moment, brother, in terms of uniting a current Panther movement back in the 90s. How important was that in terms of establishing those connections across country for our, this new Panther vanguard, if you will?
Well, you know, from, you know, my perspective at the time, and, you know, obviously I was a bit younger at the time, and that was such a powerful time, because obviously we had the summit, right, you know, yeah. with the Panther Vanguard, but also at that time the commemoration committee was doing a lot of work. The Panther Commemoration Committee, which I believe is obviously active in the West Coast.
Yes, it's about
in
time.
Oakland.
Yeah, brother.
It's
Bill,
about
yes.
time committee.
Yeah.
And also and very active on the East Coast as well. And I remember at the time, I don't know if you remember, there was Brother Lilu Lee.
Yes, he had All Power to the People, the film.
All Power to the People. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I have a copy of that. Yes.
Absolutely. And so at that time, and I think some of the functions were held in Harlem at the research library on 135th Street. And I don't know why I'm escaping the name right now. The name is escaping me. The Schomburg.
Schomburg. Okay, right.
The Schomburg Research Library.
Okay, all right.
And so that, we had functions that were taking place there, and a lot of Panthers from the West Coast were coming to those events. Right. And so those were great times. Those were powerful times. And obviously poignant that, Brother Amadou Diallo was murdered at that time. Right. And several other folks in New York and obviously around the country. So the movement at that time, it was in many ways electrified. I can't say, and this is some of the things I wanted to get into today's movement. I'm not sure if we did, and I don't want to say exploited is probably not the best word, but if we utilized the energy of that time enough to propel the movement forward to today, because I feel like we've lost a lot.
Okay. And brother, I always say, well, at least I thought recently after meeting with you, you remind me of again, Malcolm X. Because of course, Malcolm X was the progenitor Panther. He was the one who really inspired the Panther Party, along with the Lowndes County Freedom Organization, Deacon for Defense. But you are very adamant and strong when it comes to holding liberals, particularly white liberals, to task. Talk about that, brother. Because I follow your feed all the time.
Okay, no, and I appreciate it. Thank you. Yeah. No, I am very hard on liberals, Black liberals as well.
Right.
And it was and it's part of the foundation of the political education that I received from the Panthers, and that me and comrades received, and I'm sure you received as well. And obviously, you mentioned Malcolm. Malcolm was one of the first of our leadership, to publicly hold white liberals to task, and speak about the liberal contradictions,
right?
And that liberals were no different than the conservatives or Republicans, in the sense that they were also interested in control and disempowerment of the African community in America. Right. And nothing has changed. They are this way till this day. But they've been. I think liberals are so crafty that they have the Black Lives Matter movement, which initially started out. I understand that the hashtag was not created within the grassroots community, but it was actually taken for a period of time around the murder of Mike Brown.
Right.
And so many members of the community, the working class, the African working class, were using the Black Lives Matter term until we had, folks from outside the community, which would probably be termed the Black bourgeoisie, right, to take over that term and that quote unquote hashtag. And it is a hashtag movement in many ways, and direct it. And now it's partnered with the Democratic Party, the power base of white liberals, right, and also the political ruling class in this country. Okay. And that's nothing against the youth in the streets who really believe in Black Lives Matter and have worked to get something to actually come of it. But I would hope that the youth that are in the street would see some of the things that we're seeing now and the contradictions around Black Lives Matter, right, and use their energy and their history in the street to actually move in a more revolutionary direction.
Right on, right on. And I did want to bring up our visit to New York. We were received so well, brother. And again, I think you had mentioned you had something that and I think you had a relative had something to do with the food. That was it. I mean, yeah, again, it was just great. It was myself, Kwaku Duran, Charles Boko Freeman, and Neelam Sharma flew out to Los Angeles to meet, and we were upstairs right next to the Apollo Theater, I remember. And
absolutely.
And at some point, Khalid Muhammad came to the meeting. Were you there?
I was there.
Okay.
And people have no idea that's a really, in many ways, that's a historically significant moment that happened there. Obviously, with the meeting of our formations and attempting to bridge that gap between the West Coast and the East Coast Panther formations, and with plans to reach out to other Panther formations to unite.
Right.
But there was an invitation extended to Khalid Muhammad, who had taken on the leadership mantle of the new Black Panther Party out of Texas.
Right.
And obviously there were a lot of Panthers who did not want Khalid and his formation using the name the new Black Panther Party. Right. And so Khalid was, in essence, invited to the meeting to discuss making that decision, and also ultimately to stop using the name.
Right.
And so I do recall it was a chilly meeting.
Yes.
it was a chilly reception. But you know what? Looking back on that, brother, and I'm sure you've looked back on it as well. Okay. And I don't know what your feelings are of Khalid.
Yeah, he actually he became a personal friend when he moved down to Atlanta, but we can never really get together in terms of any kind of ideological work in the community outside of just meeting and contacting one another, because when it came to the legacy, it was really about not so much about the rhetoric, but also about building a platform that matches the program for the community. And so the thing is, there were some conflicts with our philosophy, but at the same time, we became friends. He and my wife and him, we would meet often, and he's a good brother too. It just that we weren't on the same page in terms of some of the language, some of the because the thing is, race has, he was an emphasis on, he put a lot of emphasis on race, and it's true. But at the same time, race is very much a part of the system, but it's not, from a Panther perspective, it's not our ultimate issue, because it shouldn't be, because we admire John Brown, we admire Viola Louisa, we admire those, what they call the mother country comrades that were reliable. So there was a difference that caused us not to be able to work real closer together. So that's my perspective.
No, I understand that. I had met Khalid before that, because Khalid made himself accessible. He would, walk up and down 125th Street sometimes and just, talk to the people. My opinion of Khalid is like you. I had, differences ideologically, as, our formations, respective formations did as well. But there was something I thought that was sincere about Khalid. Oh, yeah. I think that, and I'm not going to say that there weren't some opportunistic movements on his part, but I sincerely did believe that he loved our people.
Absolutely, absolutely, I agree with you 100%.
I sincerely believe that.
I really believe that as well. Yeah. And tell me, brother, what was the demise of the Black Panther Collective? How did that come about?
Well, in many ways, it that's a sore spot for some comrades.
Okay, well, if you don't like, say we
no, it's not for me. Not for me.
Okay.
Not for me. Not,
I can give you our story. I can give you our story.
Okay, no, please, and I would love to hear it, because anything I feel like we can learn from it, and the folks listening can learn from it. There was a period at which our central committee, because we did operate on democratic centralism, our central committee was largely made up of original Panthers. And as they were getting older, but also I think they got frustrated at times with, I wouldn't say necessarily the lack of growth, which I think was a part of it. Okay. You know, the collective at that time, we wanted to try different things to, so that we could have longevity. You know, there was even talk of us becoming a not-for-profit. And so there were these ideas that went back and forth, but I think also too, people had families, you know, a lot of, original Panthers who had, you know, not been there at one period of time for their families as revolutionaries, right. You know, wanted to be there now for their grandchildren, okay. You know, and their families. But also we're tired, you know, and I think, and I'll take this criticism on as well. I think some of us younger members, younger cadre members, we weren't up to the task at the time, okay. Of taking on leadership. Right. And there were some huge contradictions at that time. There were some things that happened with Conrad Muhammad, who left the Nation of Islam at the time and started a hip hop organization, because that was kind of in at the time, right, for people to start hip hop organizations, right, and call them political formations. Oh, okay, right. And right, and we see okay. We see that kind of stuff today as well, that kind of opportunism. Not to say that, you know, maybe there are, you know, one or two brothers and sisters that are sincere about the whole hip hop activism thing. I don't necessarily believe in it.
Right. Well, they're tied to a multi-billion-dollar industry, so you know, you right. always have to have questions.
Absolutely, and so there, you know, we had members who were trying to do their own thing at times. Okay. At that time, and and we didn't move as an organization that way, so we had inner conflict around how the organization should move forward. And so many of us just decided the best thing would be to step away. Okay. And that was the beginning. I would say that was the beginning of the end.
Okay. And what would you say, you know, looking back, what was the legacy of the Black Panther Collective in New York? What would you say, when looking back at that time, and what you guys contributed?
Well, I think obviously, as you mentioned, one of the major aspects of our legacy is being the first organization in the country to do video patrols, yes, the way we did it. Absolutely. And outside of that, I think within our movement, we were highly principled, and you know, and some people may agree with this or disagree with it. If there were figures within our movement that had major contradictions, like some of us, you know, felt like Ron Karenga had major contradictions with his history that needed to be addressed. Right. When he would come to town, we would attempt to address those contradictions, okay, in front of the community. Wow. And we did that throughout the movement, to the point where I think there were some aspects, because there are some formations in our community that tend to be class oriented. Okay. You know, that was so at that time, and it is highly so now. As a matter of fact, I heard one elder recently on a show on Russian radio, and she works with the is it the Freedom and Peace movement? They're based in Baltimore.
Freedom and I think so. I'm gonna have to do some research on that one. Yeah.
Yeah, not sure, but
it sounds familiar though. Yeah.
Right. But basically, this elder was saying that the movement has become bourgeois. Okay. That we allowed the PhDs to basically step forward and take over and become mouthpieces of the African working class. And clearly, the Black bourgeoisie don't have the same interests as poor folks and working class folks. That's right. And so it has changed our movement considerably. And so we challenged that.
Okay. And what legacy, well, in terms of not legacy, but what advice would you give today's current activists? Because each era has their own different set of circumstances. What would you say to a young, young man, young woman today that are activists? What advice would you give to them today?
Well, I would say one of the things that they don't benefit from that me and my comrades and us at that time benefited from were we had live revolutionaries that were still active in the movement.
Absolutely.
And I'm not, yeah, I mean, and obviously not just African, Puerto Rican,
Right.
even, the white North American comrades who had been in the struggle and still in the struggle. And we had the benefit of sitting at their feet at times and learning, getting our political education the way we needed to. And I would say, unfortunately, when I've encountered a lot of the younger activists, they've taken on a lot of liberalism.
Okay, right.
They've taken on a lot of liberalism. They also have an idea or feeling that they don't need the previous generation's knowledge or guidance.
Right.
And a lot of times they don't necessarily want us involved because they feel like they have taken, because, and speaking of Twitter has been damaging in the sense of a lot of young liberal social media influencers and so forth have no connection to our movement.
Right.
But they have a lot of influence in social media.
Right. But they're not actually working in the community like we did. Person to person in the community. Right.
Absolutely. Most of them don't. They have no idea what that's like. And unfortunately, many of them being liberal, being highly influenced by that ideology, have taken on the idea that everything that happened in the Black Power movement and our revolutionary history, most of it was somehow backwards or it missed the mark. Either it was sexist and misogynistic, or it was short-sighted in many ways, and now those things are obsolete.
Okay, all right.
And so I would say to youth, don't embrace that ideology, because that is that kind of ageism and a divide in our community. We don't need that. And there's obviously if the youth don't take any information from the older generations, that's going to be a disaster.
Wow. Well, history has a way of rewarding, or at least recognizing, and I know that the Black Panther Collective, as well as the New Panther Vanguard, are mentioned in this book, Liberation, Imagination, and the Black Panther Party, very favorably by Mumia Abu-Jamal. So sometimes we didn't really, I know this is true for you, we didn't really look for any kind of recognition because the work was in the community. If we got it, it was cool. But thing is, in hindsight, for us to take on that mantle, I think was something that we can look back on and say, you know what? Again, we tried to do what we had to do in our era. We served the people body and soul, and that's something I think could be a lasting testament to the Black Panther Collective, as well as the Panther Vanguard. So that's something I think we definitely have to look back on very positively. Tell us about your poetry as well as your community healing. I'd love to learn more about that.
Oh, absolutely. I've been a performance poet off and on, probably since I was roughly about 18.
Okay.
And so I've written poetry since then. I have a comrade, one of the comrades who was involved with the collective at the time that we met was I don't know if you ever, it's a brother named Bruce George, who actually is the co-creator of Def Poetry Jam.
Oh, okay. All right.
Right. And I'm sure folks know Def Poetry Jam.
Oh, yes.
I did some writing for an anthology that Brother Bruce George mentioned. It was an anthology of street tribes. It's called the Bandana Republic.
Okay.
And basically political organizers that worked with street tribes. It was at the time is the Bloods, and in New York it was the Bloods and the Crips and the Etas, and also Latin Kings.
Okay, right. Oh yeah, very familiar with Latin Kings. Yes, yes.
So absolutely. So yeah, and so yeah, I still write poetry as well. And in terms of the alternative healing aspect,
Right.
that's something I've always been involved in my personal life,
Okay.
probably since I was in my late teens and started to expose myself to alternative healing.
Okay.
I also spent 13 years in an alternative healing organization, Japanese-based organization that was very involved in energy healing.
Right.
And I'm sorry, go ahead, brother.
Oh no, no, go ahead, go ahead. Yeah, you saying
No,
about
I
the
was
energy
just
healing? Yeah.
so my focus now in terms of the information that I try to put online is not so much. I mean, a lot of folks in our community kind of get off into being strict vegan or
Right.
vegetarian, and that's not my thing so much. I honestly believe that the more raw food that you eat is great for you. I mean,
Okay.
include as much raw food as possible.
Okay.
I don't necessarily believe that people need to completely stop eating meat.
Okay.
I believe that there should be a period during the year where you don't eat meat, so that you allow your body to detox itself and your because obviously eating meat is a lot of work for your digestive
Right.
system.
Right.
So it is good that you have a period of time during the year where you allow yourself,
Okay.
your body a time to rest.
Right.
But I'm very much into, brother. I'm very much into survival healing, and what I mean by survival healing is a lot of us don't know that there are products in our home right now that can cure cancer.
Okay.
If you combine baking soda and lemon juice, that can act as a natural form of chemotherapy. It actually starts to reverse the process of cancer.
Okay.
Now, that wouldn't be the case for every cancer, but some people, there are products that we should know about that we don't know about. One of the products is colloidal silver. Obviously,
Okay.
we've been dealing with COVID, and we're still dealing with COVID. And I caught COVID actually when it first came in the country.
Oh wow.
I was
Wow.
I was driving for Uber and picked up some folks at the airport here in DC, and these folks had just landed. They had fought their way across the world to get back.
Oh,
And
okay.
because
Right.
at that time, obviously, people were having a hard time getting back in the country.
Right.
But these folks came from Taiwan, and they were they wanted a ride so bad that they actually ended up exposing me.
Oh wow.
And I don't think they were aware. I don't think they were aware that they had been exposed to COVID. But they pulled their masks off and wanted to talk to me and so forth. But a few hours later, I was pretty sick.
Oh wow.
And so I struggled with pretty severe pneumonia for a few days, but I treated myself with oil of oregano,
Okay.
colloidal silver, high doses of vitamin C and omega-3 and a few other different supplements. In about a week, I was fine.
Oh, okay. All right. All
I
right.
was fine after a week, So I think it's important for us to know how to use supplementation
Okay.
for survival.
All right.
And I think a lot of us don't know how to use supplements for our basic survival and how to detox our bodies. So we're looking to CNN to tell us how to heal ourselves.
Right. 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 Yes. And were you, what's your opinion of the apple cider vinegar craze everyone is doing now? I mean, are there good effects to it or just hype is,
I
yeah.
I do. I will say this. there, I think there's pluses and there are some minuses, but I think apple cider vinegar, I use it. I will combine. I'll get some spring water, and I'll pour in some apple cider vinegar, and I drink it as a way to one, detoxify. It's a great detoxifier.
Okay.
And it is a great cancer fighter.
Oh, okay.
But it also is great for speeding up your metabolism.
Okay.
And losing weight. So if you were, add a little bit of apple cider vinegar to your water every day, the benefits would be amazing.
Okay.
The problem with apple cider vinegar is sometimes people do it straight, and it is highly acidic.
Yes.
It is highly acidic. But what I would say to folks is, if you do a couple of, maybe 2-3 times a week, if you make yourself a power salad,
okay.
And a power salad is, you get yourself a bunch of kale in a bowl and squeeze lemon juice on it, because a lot of people don't know how to make kale soft.
Oh, okay. I'll make sure I tell my wife, because she has it a different way.
Okay. What does your wife do?
Well, she usually she puts it in this high pressure cooker, and it does get it to a very manageable texture. So she combines a few things. I don't want to give too much away, but without her consent.
Absolutely, I got it.
Yeah.
But yeah, a lot of people don't know. Yeah, if you put a bunch of that hard kale in a bowl, because it can be pretty hard.
Very coarse.
You put lemon juice on it, of course. Yeah, you put lemon juice on it and you let it soak in there for a little while. It softens the kale.
Oh, okay. All right.
But yeah, if you make yourself a power salad with that and onions and cucumbers, and maybe throw yourself some blueberries in there, and all of those, you got yourself a powerful alkalizing meal there.
Wow.
And I'm telling you, and obviously you can add, some add apple cider vinegar to it. Okay. And what you will find with those kinds of power salads is, if that's all you're eating and you're drinking some pretty pure water, and I don't recommend tap water to anybody for anything.
Okay.
Obviously we got to bathe in it, but that is what it is.
That's about it, right?
Right. You will actually smell the toxins coming out of your body. Wow. Especially obviously you include a little raw garlic in that as well. And sometimes when you are healing from an illness such as cancer, and you use you eat raw food in that manner, you will actually smell it come out of your pores.
Wow.
It doesn't smell very good, but it's better for it to come out of your pores and out of your system than be inside.
Okay. All right. Wow. Solid advice, your brother. And in conclusion, what future plans do you have? Do you have any projects on the in the agenda or plans you can discuss?
Well, brother, I and who knows, maybe we'll get to talk to each other again. But what part of what I've been dealing with, and we didn't get to talk about the aspect of what happened with the patrols when we got a little bit of attention from the FBI. Because,
well, we can talk about that. Yeah, absolutely. Oh, yeah. Tell me about that.
Oh, absolutely. In the middle of us doing the brutality prevention project and the video patrols, towards the time, because there was a period where I did move to the West Coast, but just before that, several members of the team were having their homes broken into. We had one comrade who his home was repeatedly broken into. Wow. We had one comrade, and you met, I don't know if you remember Squeeze.
Not offhand. It's been so long.
But that is Sin One, George Murillo. Okay. He was walking down the street one day, and someone trained a infrared scope on his chest.
Wow.
And so what happened to me and another comrade is one day we had to break off the patrols because we used 2 vehicles for our patrols, but one of the vehicles had the headlights malfunction. So we were only able to use high beams. And since we didn't want to be pulled over by the cops, we had to end the patrols that night.
Okay.
And we ended up going down to Greenwich Village. And as we were walking down the street, we were approached by 2 tall white men.
Okay. All right.
And as they walked up behind us, we noticed them. And one of them sort of stood at attention at the corner. And the other guy, who kind of looked like Matthew McConaughey, is what I always say.
Was that right? Okay. All right. Okay.
Started walking right behind us. And just looking at them, and these weren't at that time, you didn't see a lot of guys that looked like Matthew McConaughey in New York.
Oh, okay.
You see
right.
a lot of them. You see a lot of them now.
Right. Okay. All right. All right. They both look like Woody Allen or something like that, right?
Exactly. But yeah, we've got a lot of, but you're right, brother.
Right.
Obviously, we got a big Jewish community in New York, but now in New York City, we have a lot of folks who, are gentrifying the neighborhoods, but they're from the Midwest.
Okay. All right.
Many of them are from Wisconsin and Montana, and you name it. And that happened largely after big time after 9/11. But anyway, but this guy walked up to us and began to try to interview us. And initially said that he just wanted to go out and have a drink with us. This is out of nowhere, and then wanted out of nowhere, and then he was honest in saying that he wanted to get our opinions on the police murders in the city and different things, and one of my comrades said to him, said, "Oh, you want to give us fire water? You want to get us drunk? You want to give us fire water, get us drunk so you can pick our brains." Wow! But we actually threatened to beat the guy up, and he invited us to do that. He said, "Oh, you want to beat me up? Please go ahead." And that's how we knew who we were dealing with. Because
you're gonna take a charge.
Right. Exactly. He wanted us to get physical with him. Wow. But since then, brother, my experience with who I know to be the intelligence community has been pretty ongoing.
Okay.
And it has and very recently it's involved them tampering with my vehicle, and leaving hazardous chemicals on my vehicle.
Oh man.
Okay. Which has not been pretty pleasant. I'll say that. And so I've been dealing with that, and I've been honestly trying to get some attention with that, some media attention, because I don't believe, obviously, this is not just something that I'm dealing with.
Right.
I believe that this is a part of a larger program. I don't know if you've seen recently in the news that there was a news story by Newsweek that the Pentagon has a secret military force that operates domestically and internationally.
Right. I did hear something about that. Yes. Yeah. Not in detail. But, yeah.
Right. And so essentially, well, you're right, because I don't think anybody wants to touch that news story largely. Because what it points to is that the U.S., that the intelligence community here, very much like the Eastern German Stasi, that there's a secret police force in America.
Right. And
that secret police force is not only just surveilling normal people going about their business, but obviously people who they consider to be political dissidents.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And so those are one of the things that I've been dealing with a lot recently, and hopefully, I think it's important that our movement recognize that that kind of surveillance didn't end with COINTELPRO.
Right. Well, thing is, back in the day, you didn't hear about COINTELPRO, and that's why you don't hear it today, because it still exists, obviously.
Right.
So yes. Well, brother, I definitely, hope that the situation gets better for you in terms of that. And brother, it's been just a honor to reconnect with, with you and to the Black Panther Collective. And again, this is going to be the first of many dialogues. Hopefully we can, at some point, fly to New York, or, you guys come down here, what have you, particularly around an event. That, I think, would be a great thing. Because I know you guys are involved in a few, some events in the community, right? Are you involved in that, or some organizations?
Well, currently, I would love to say that there's a lot going on where I'm at in DC. I'm in DC, right?
Oh, DC, that's right. Yeah.
I'm in DC. there are some local activists and organizations. Obviously, Black Lives Matter is here.
Right.
Some of the things I've been doing has been more around the labor movement and Black construction workers.
Okay.
But I would love to visit Atlanta. I've actually been thinking about visiting Atlanta.
Okay. All right. And brother, how can people reach out to you? Because again, you like I said, you have such a great grasp of what's going on in our society. And is there any way to people could follow you, contact you,
Well,
to get information?
sure. I am on. I'm the easiest way. I am on Twitter under Malek Akan, MALEK AKAN. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Facebook as well.
Okay.
So yeah, definitely. Please feel free to reach out.
Okay, definitely. Well, brother, it's been a pleasure, and I'm just so glad you sent that tweet out that day, so I could just reach out to you and say, brother, Black Panther
Absolutely.
Collective, Panther Vanguard, brother. So
No, thank you, brother.
again,
I'm
thank you
glad.
for
I'm glad you
all.
saw it.
Oh yes, absolutely, and thank you for all that the Black Panther Collective and yourself have done. You did in the '90s, carrying the legacy forward from the party to a Panther movement, and I can definitely say that you guys were one of the best coalition comrades we had in the '90s. So again, we appreciate your work, brother.
No, same here, brother. And I remember those times fondly,
Yeah.
and thank you.
Oh, absolutely, brother. Well, all power to the people, brother. And I'll be
All
talking
power
with
to the
you real
people.
soon.
All right. Peace, brother.
Oh, peace, brother. Appreciate you.
All right.